I'm Donna Blanchard, and this is your ThinkTech Daily News for Thursday, June 25th, 2015. Would you like the good news or the bad news first? Okay. Last week, Islamic State militants lost the Syrian town of Tal Abyad on the Turkish border to Kurdish militants and Arab rebels. That was quite a strategic win for the locals. But today, ISIS fought back on two other fronts. ISIS fighters, disguised as Kurdish militiamen, sneaked into the northern town of Kobani at dawn when most people were sleeping. They exploded a large truck bomb at the Turkish border crossing, and the fighting began with local Kurdish forces. In the south, ISIS groups began a new campaign to push government forces from the city of Daraa. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which monitors the conflict from Britain through contacts on the ground, said that 14 Islamic State fighters and 35 civilians and Kurdish fighters had been killed. The battle continues in Yemen between Saudi-backed fighters loyal to President Abdurabu Mansour Hadi and Iran-backed Houthi fighters loyal to past President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Even before the conflict began, Yemen was the poorest country in the Arab world, importing most of its food and fuel. Recent reports state that 1 in 3 Yemeni residents are in need of some form of humanitarian aid, and today a United Nations envoy warns that polio could soon make a comeback and a dengue breakout has struck an estimated 3,000 people. The envoy goes on that 20 million people don't have access to clean drinking water, and a large portion of the country is, quote, one step away from famine. The UN is working hard to gain a ceasefire, at least through the holy month of Ramadan, but talks in Geneva last week didn't go well at all. Representatives from each side never even sat in the same room together, and continued efforts thus far yield only the Saudi-led coalition insisting on the withdrawal of Houthis from strategic cities and their own monitors on the ground, and the Houthis refusing to, insisting that the coalition will not keep up their word, as they have already proven the last time a ceasefire was attempted. John Ging, the United Nations humanitarian coordinator, has appealed to the Security Council to set up a verification system to move the ceasefire forward. Uber, the app-based logistics company, is used in over 300 cities in 57 countries, and a lot of taxi drivers don't care for that. Today in France, they did something about it. They held a strike and blocked entrances to major airports and train stations. They burned tires in the streets, and police used riot gear and tear gas to break up the protests. In France, taxi drivers must pay for an operating license. The Uber drivers must only pass a security check. Uber's unpopular with taxi services in several cities, but this is the first such protest against them. In the White House Rose Garden today, President Obama announced, in America, healthcare is not a privilege for a few, but a right for all. The Affordable Care Act is here to stay. This declaration came after the Supreme Court decided to uphold most insurance subsidies in the healthcare law. And it looks like President Obama is about to score another victory this week with the passage of powerful new authority that will allow him to finish negotiations on a historic trade agreement with Pacific Rim nations. Good news for Nepal this week as well. Foreign donors have pledged $3 billion to help them rebuild after 2 earthquakes in April and May caused damage throughout the country. India pledged $2 billion, by far the largest contribution. China, Japan, Britain, the United States, the European Union, and other countries, and the Asian Development Bank also made contributions. And the World Bank pledged an additional loan of up to $500 million for reconstruction of housing in rural areas and for the government's budget. Nepal's Prime Minister, Sushil Koiralas, told an international donor conference in Kathmandu that we will share periodically the use of the funds to maintain transparency because you are accountable to your own citizens. Ahui ho, everyone. Donna Blanchard, ThinkTech Daily News.